What happens when a night designed to celebrate one superstar ends with another stealing every headline? Chicago's highly anticipated Barbie night was meant to honor Angel Reese in front of a packed arena, celebrity guests, and thousands of passionate fans. But Caitlin Clark had very different plans. From a stunning career-best performance to another chapter in one of the WNBA's most intense rivalries, the game delivered controversy, record-breaking moments, hard fouls, and a dramatic momentum shift that nobody expected. Meanwhile, Reese still made history with a rookie rebounding record, but was it overshadowed by Clark's brilliance? In today's video, we'll break down everything that happened and why this unforgettable night changed the Clark-Reese rivalry forever. When Barbie night changed everything about Friday night in Chicago, it was designed to celebrate Angel Reese. The Sky called it Barbie night, dressing the arena in pink and leaning fully into the nickname she carried out of LSU. Shaquille O'Neal sat courtside, a mentor figure through Reese's footwear deal, joined by Sue Bird and soccer star Megan Rapinoe in a crowd that filled every one of the arena's 9,445 seats. Was any promotion built that thoroughly around a single player ever going to survive an opponent playing the best game of her career? Caitlin Clark entered the night already the story of the league. Friday night at the Chicago Sky against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever playing some of the best basketball in the WNBA. Even without a single graphic celebrating her arrival in Chicago, she came in averaging 18 points, 8.1 assists, and 5.7 rebounds a game. Numbers that had made her the presumptive Rookie of the Year long before this particular Friday. She was also chasing something no one else in league history had ever touched. 3 separate games that season with at least 25 points and 10 rebounds, a combination not one other player had managed even once. Clark showed up loose. She debuted a fresh pair of sneakers before tip-off, a small moment that barely registered against the pink backdrop of the Barbie promotion, but hinted at the ease she carried into a building designed to celebrate someone else entirely. The Sky, for their part, had every reason to feel confident. Reese was in the middle of a historic rebounding tear, and a home crowd primed for a celebration only added to the sense that this was going to be her night. Could a rookie forward's individual milestone chase really coexist peacefully with a visiting superstar looking for a signature performance? League analysts covering both teams had spent the summer framing every Fever Sky matchup as a referendum on the Rookie of the Year race, and this one arrived with extra weight attached. Indiana had already beaten Chicago twice that season, each game decided by a single point, and a third meeting inside a building dressed for someone else's celebration only raised the stakes further for both sides. National coverage of the rivalry had grown loud enough by late August that even casual fans understood the subtext of Barbie night beyond the pink lighting. Every Fever Sky broadcast that season had turned into appointment viewing, with commentators openly debating whether Reese's rebounding numbers or Clark's all-around production deserved the rookie hardware once the year ended. Wrapping that debate inside a themed promotional night only sharpened the sense that Friday's outcome might carry weight far beyond a single regular season box score. Had any rookie class in league history generated this kind of box office pull before? The broader numbers around both rookies told a story of a league experiencing genuine historic attention. Ticket demand for Fever Road games had reshaped scheduling decisions across the league that season. Arenas moving games to larger venues and adding staff simply to handle the crowds Clark's presence generated wherever Indiana traveled. Chicago's decision to build an entire promotional night around Reese fit that same pattern. Angel Reese is going to go hard. She's tough. She cares about making a stand for her team. Proof that both rookies individually had become box office draws capable of anchoring a marketing campaign on their own. What nobody accounted for was just how quickly Clark could rewrite a script written for somebody else. The Sky came out sharp using Barbie night's energy to build an early cushion. Chicago opened on an 11-point run that stretched into a 15-1 burst, forcing Indiana into an early hole and giving the sellout crowd exactly the start it had been promised. For a few minutes it looked like the promotional theme was going to hold up on the scoreboard as well as it did in the arena decor. Would Indiana even manage to make this competitive, let alone walk away with the headline? The Fever answered by closing the first quarter on a 12-2 run of their own, trimming what had briefly been a double-digit deficit down to 3 points by the time the horn sounded. Chicago had hit 4 three-pointers in the opening quarter alone. A season-high pace from beyond the arc that kept the building loud even as Indiana clawed back into range. Nobody in Wintrust Arena could have guessed the loudest storyline of the night was still 2 hours away from fully revealing itself. Chicago's physical answer to Caitlin Clark. By the time Barbie night tipped off, Chicago's approach to guarding Caitlin Clark was no secret around the league. Earlier that season, Sky guard Cindy Carter had delivered a hard hip check that sent Clark to the floor. Chicago's Cindy Carter shoulder checking the Fever's Caitlin Clark, knocking her to the ground. The call initially deemed a common foul and sparked a national conversation about how physically opposing teams, and Chicago in particular, were willing to play against her. Carter did not suit up for this game, sidelined under the league's health and safety protocols. But the tone her earlier hit had set followed the Sky into Wintrust Arena regardless. Did one team's approach to defense really need to look this much like a message? Diamond DeShields delivered the next chapter early in this contest, closing on Clark at close to full speed, and sending her sliding hard across the hardwood on a foul serious enough to be reviewed and upgraded. It was the second flagrant foul Clark had absorbed in this single game alone, part of a pattern opposing defenses had leaned into throughout her rookie season. Caitlin Clark has been named WNBA Rookie of the Year, the #1 overall pick. Didn't only break rookie records in her first year in the W. Clark stayed on the floor. She always did. Whatever message Chicago's physicality was meant to send, she answered it by getting back up and continuing to attack exactly the way she had before the whistle. Commentators watching from courtside noted how little the contact seemed to change her approach to the rest of the game, even as replays of the collision circulated widely in the hours that followed. Was this simply the price of stardom in a physical league, or something opposing teams were doing deliberately? Broadcasters covering her rookie season had already begun cataloging a pattern: hard fouls, hip checks, and flagrant contact that seemed to follow Clark from city to city more than it followed any other player in the league. One veteran broadcaster covering the league argued publicly that the harsh treatment from teams like Chicago actually benefited both Clark and the sport, framing it as proof the league was finally being taken seriously as a physical, competitive product rather than a showcase built around one star. Not every voice around the league saw it that way. Some opposing players had grown openly frustrated with the constant attention Clark received, arguing in interviews that the conversation around her overshadowed everyone else on the floor. That tension simmered under the surface of nearly every Fever road game that season, and Chicago's building on Barbie night was no exception, even with the promotional spotlight pointed elsewhere. Chicago's approach on this particular night fit squarely inside that season-long pattern, another data point in a rookie campaign that had already produced more contact review footage than most veterans see in several years combined. League officials had already fielded questions throughout the summer about whether the physical treatment crossed the line, with some observers noting the Sky specifically had delivered controversial contact in each of their first 3 meetings against Clark that season. Could this rivalry actually exist without the physical edge defining every single headline? Reese herself had faced her own share of scrutiny that summer, with critics questioning whether Chicago's aggressive defensive scheme reflected a broader frustration among Clark's peers about the outsized attention her rookie season had generated. The tension cut in multiple directions at once. Part basketball rivalry, part generational shift in how the league was being covered, and part genuine physical toll accumulating on a player logging heavy minutes almost every night. None of it slowed the response coming from the other side of the ball. Every hard foul Chicago delivered seemed to sharpen Indiana's focus rather than rattle it. Caitlin Clark and Diamond with 3 fouls against Caitlin. And they're going to go and look at this one. And the Fever bench treated each whistle as fuel rather than a setback. By the time the second quarter began, whatever message Chicago's physicality had been trying to send had already been answered in full. Not with words, but with a shooting stroke that refused to cool down. The Fever's turning point. Trailing by 3 after a rocky opening quarter, Indiana needed its best player to find a rhythm quickly. And Clark obliged almost immediately. She opened the second quarter with back-to-back 3-pointers. The first signs of the outside shooting that would eventually carry her to a career night. The Fever's response turned into a run that reached 34-12, flipping the game's momentum and handing Indiana a 10-point cushion on a Kelsey Mitchell 3-pointer. Could Chicago really let a promotional night slip away without one more push before halftime? The Sky refused to fold quietly. Behind a technical foul assessed to Indiana's Aaliyah Boston. Boston called for an offensive foul. Cleared too much of it with the elbow. And that's big girl basketball down there. That was great. Upset over a no call in the closing seconds of the half, Reese calmly stepped to the line and cashed in the free throw, pulling Chicago back within 5 points at the break. 47-41 at halftime meant every bit of Indiana's second quarter surge had been trimmed down to something the Sky could still realistically overturn. Indiana wasted no time reasserting control once the third quarter began. The Fever pushed their lead to 11 points early, forcing Chicago to search for answers against the defense that had tightened considerably since the opening minutes. Smith provided a steady scoring presence throughout the frame, finishing with 11 of her 14 points in the third quarter alone, a stretch that kept Chicago from ever fully climbing back into contention. Was there a version of this game where Chicago actually completes the comeback? For a few possessions in the middle of the third quarter, it looked plausible. Chicago stayed within shouting distance through most of the frame, refusing to let the deficit balloon completely out of reach the way it eventually would. Angel Reese Dantas connected from beyond the arc late in the quarter, and Lexi Hull answered with 2 free throws off a hustle offensive rebound as time expired, pushing Indiana's lead to 76-64 heading into the fourth quarter. A cushion that finally felt secure rather than fragile. Could 3 role players really keep pace with a rookie forward putting up historic numbers on the other end? Chicago's supporting cast had done its part to keep the game competitive for as long as it did. Maisha Onyenwere led the Sky with 20 points on an efficient shooting night, while Lindsay Allen added 19, and Rachel Banham chipped in 14 off the bench. Without Chindy Carter available, that trio carried far more offensive responsibility than usual. And for 3 quarters, they managed to keep Chicago within range of a genuine upset before Indiana's depth finally took over in the fourth. The fourth quarter turned into a coronation rather than a contest. Indiana's lead swelled to 27 points at its peak, a margin that allowed Fever head coach Stephanie White to rest her starters well before the final horn. Chicago closed the game on a 10-2 run against Indiana's reserves, a stretch that made the final 100-81 scoreline look closer than the game had actually felt for most of the fourth quarter. Kelsey Mitchell finished with 23 points on 9 of 13 shooting, extending her own streak to 6 straight games with at least 20 points and giving Indiana a second scoring threat Chicago never fully solved. The Fever had now won 5 of their last 6 games since the league's Olympic break, a stretch that quietly repositioned them as a legitimate playoff contender rather than simply a one-woman spectacle riding a single transcendent rookie. How many teams managed to turn a rookie sensation's individual brilliance into genuine, sustainable team success this quickly? Indiana's front office had spent the entire season building complementary pieces around Clark rather than leaning on her alone, and nights like this one showed the payoff. Nalissa Smith's third-quarter surge, Mitchell's continued scoring streak, and Lexi Hull's timely hustle plays all pointed to a roster maturing in real time, not just a supporting cast riding a single star's coattails through a difficult rookie transition. Reese's record night. While Clark had already exited to a standing ovation, Angel Reese was still chasing history of her own on the other end of the floor. With 1 minute and 32 seconds remaining and the outcome no longer in question, she pulled down her 11th rebound of the night, breaking a tie with Tina Charles for the most rookie double-doubles in WNBA history. It was her 23rd double-double of the season, a genuinely historic achievement buried inside a blowout loss. Does a record mean something different when it arrives after the game has already been decided? Reese's night carried a second milestone as well. That same rebound total pushed her past Sylvia Fowles for the Chicago franchise's single-season rebounding record, a mark that had stood for years before a rookie broke it in her very first season with the team. She finished with 10 points and 11 rebounds. Numbers that would have been the headline of almost any other night on the WNBA calendar. The timing told its own story. Reese's record fell with Indiana starters already on the bench in street clothes. The game long since decided, and a home crowd that had spent the entire fourth quarter watching its team fall further behind. What should have been a celebratory moment for a rookie phenom instead played out in the quiet, deflated atmosphere of garbage time on a night that never went Chicago's way. Would this record have landed differently in a closer game? With the crowd still fully invested in the outcome? It is difficult not to wonder. Reese's season-long numbers remained remarkable regardless of context. A rookie record 399 rebounds across the season placed her among the most productive first-year rebounders the league had ever seen. A testament to relentless effort on the glass that no single blowout loss could erase from the record book. Her double-double streak had become one of the most consistent storylines of the entire WNBA season. Promotional night or not, Reese's rebounding gifts had never really been in question that season. Blowout or otherwise. She attacked the offensive glass with the relentlessness that had already drawn comparisons to some of the league's most productive veterans. And her ability to convert missed shots into second-chance opportunities had kept Chicago competitive, in games far less lopsided than this one. The rebounding record, whenever it arrived, was always going to reflect a genuinely elite skill rather than a fluke of garbage time hustle. Still, records set in the shadow of a runaway scoreline rarely become the headline they were designed to be. Barbie Night had been built to showcase exactly this kind of achievement from Reese, complete with the pink banners and the celebrity guests. And by any measure, it succeeded on paper. But paper rarely tells the story a crowd remembers walking out of an arena. And on this particular Friday, the record everyone would be discussing belonged to somebody wearing a different jersey entirely. Does a courtside seat next to a Hall of Famer change how a milestone gets remembered? Shaquille O'Neal watched the entire sequence from his courtside seat. A fitting audience for a milestone tied so closely to Reese's growing off-court brand. His presence throughout the season had become something of a fixture at Sky home games. A veteran champion lending credibility to a rookie forward already building a business empire around her college nickname. Even his presence, though, could not change the arithmetic on the scoreboard behind him. And the cameras kept drifting back toward the fever bench instead of the milestone unfolding in front of him. How Clark stole Reese's spotlight. Strip away the promotional theme, the pink lighting, and the celebrity courtside seats, and one line refused to be overshadowed. 31 points, 12 assists, 4 rebounds on 8 of 14 shooting with 5 threes to show for it. It was Clark's 11th double-double of the season and, more importantly, the single highest scoring game of her professional career to that point. Arriving, of all places, inside an arena decorated for someone else's celebration entirely. How does a night built entirely around one player end up defined by another? The numbers surrounding Clark's season made the performance feel less like an outlier and more like an inevitability. She remained the only player in WNBA history with 3 games of at least 25 points and 10 rebounds in a single season. And she stayed firmly on pace to break the league's single-season assist record before the year was out. Every box score from this stretch of her rookie year read like another entry in a record book still being written in real time. What did this particular Friday actually change about the shape of the Rookie of the Year conversation? Very little, according to most observers who covered the race all summer. And yet everything about the optics shifted regardless. A promotional night engineered around one candidate's brand had instead produced the signature statistical night of the other candidate's season. A twist that no amount of pink lighting could rewrite after the fact. National coverage the following morning led overwhelmingly with Clark's career-high line, rather than Reese's rebounding record, regardless of which team had actually designed the evening's marketing. Did a single road win in Chicago really mean anything for Indiana's bigger picture? The win carried real weight in the standings. Post-feed. Boston. OH picks the clock. Wow. Indiana improved to 16 wins and 16 losses. Their third victory in 4 meetings against Chicago that season, after the first 2 matchups were each decided by a single point. The Fever, 5-1 since the league's Olympic break, looked increasingly like a team built for more than just a feel-good rookie storyline. I pace until last night this one. Oh, that's a nice little fake by Boston. They looked like a team quietly building toward the playoffs with real momentum behind them. Clark, typically understated in front of reporters, credited the version of her team taking shape over these final weeks rather than her own scoring. She pointed to chemistry built over repetition, telling reporters afterwards that understanding her teammates better had translated directly into confidence on the floor. Minus the first 6 minutes of the game, I thought we were really good, she said, adding that the group had battled and refused to let a close game slip away the way an earlier meeting in Chicago had. She expanded on that theme further, describing a team that had learned to share the basketball more freely as the season matured. There are so many great players. There's so many great teams. For me, that's why I became a fan of this league, is these people were my idols. I grew up building chemistry over time, she explained, had a way of compounding. Better ball movement opened up the transition game, which in turn made the defense more disruptive at the other end of the floor. It was a deflection that fit her rookie season perfectly, crediting a collective effort even on the night she posted the best individual line of her young career. What happens the next time these two rookies share a floor with even more attention riding on it? Chicago and Indiana were always going to meet again, and every additional chapter in the Clark-Reese rivalry only seemed to raise the volume further. Both players were still just months into their professional careers, and if this single game produced this much drama, controversy, and record book history, the season still ahead promised only more of the same. This particular meeting will be remembered less for the pink banners than for the moment an opposing rookie walked into a building built for someone else, and simply refused to leave as the second story of the night. Barbie Night was supposed to belong to Angel Reese, and in the record books part of it still does. A franchise rebounding mark, A rookie double-double tie. History that nobody can take away. But basketball has a way of rewriting even the most carefully planned scripts, and on this particular Friday, Caitlin Clark walked into a building built for someone else, and simply refused to leave as the second story. 2 rookies, 1 rivalry, and a season still writing itself in real time. Chicago and Indiana will meet again, and if this game is any indication, the next one won't be quiet either. This has been Hoops Uncovered.